Whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, what do you want me to start with here?
What are your thoughts and experiences with first local referendums, if you have any?
Yeah. So I've worked on a lot of both local and state initiatives and referendums, and my general view of them is that if democracy works correctly, we shouldn't need them. The people that we elect to office should be doing these things, but sometimes they don't. Um, I grew up in California where we've always had referendums, and sometimes you would have ballots where there are 20 different referendums you're voting on, and sometimes two competing ones. This last year in California, I mean, I live in Ohio now, but this last year in California, there was a referendum on forcing gig employers to pay healthcare and all of that stuff, like Uber and Lyft and these things. And then there was a competing referendum financed by Uber and Lyft to say the opposite. And of course, that one won because they had all the money. They spent tens of millions of dollars on it. So the way the system can be perverted, even at the local level, is that a relatively small number of people can get a petition and get something put on the ballot in order to serve their special interest. So that's I'm not for or against the referendum process. I just think so many of them are just corrupted. Everything comes down to money and politics.
Yeah. Like, if I remember correctly, 1978, a very notorious California state referendum, Proposition 13 it was called.
Yes, 1978 was a big year for initiatives here. In June of 78, Proposition 13, the Jarvis-Gann, they called it back then, that changed the way property taxes were collected in California and gave a huge advantage to people who owned a home then in June of 78. But if you bought a house right after that, you were going to pay higher taxes. So it was a boon to current homeowners, and it decimated local school districts, parks. And so you ended up then having to replace that money. And usually how they replace it in schools is doing away with art and music, making participants pay, making a kid pay $300 for his football uniform, or whatever, those things that used to be funded by taxpayers.
Yeah.
And then in late 78, in November of 78, I worked on a campaign that was run out of San Francisco supervisor Harvey Milk's camera store. Yes. And that was to overturn the Briggs Initiative. So the Briggs Initiative would say that gays and lesbians could not teach in public schools. And when the campaign started, it was heavily favored. So I worked on that campaign. And worked primarily in straight Catholic neighborhoods, trying to remind these people that this is about discrimination. It's not about sexual exploitation of children. It's about one group just discriminating. And in fact, a week before the election, Ronald Reagan came out against the initiative, and that's really what swung things. That kind of gave permission for other, straight whites and Republicans to vote against it. And then coincidentally, it was about 3 weeks after we won that when Harvey Milk and the mayor of San Francisco were assassinated at City Hall. So that was quite a crazy time.
Yeah. That's that's horrible, obviously. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of research on, you may have seen some of my posts. I know I post like crazy about this stuff, but Yeah, I know that's one thing that I guess yeah can go wrong with referendums is like you mentioned before, and now just now it was big money. Um, Now I did read about something called a double majority, which is a supermajority of regular voters and Congress members. So that's in theory, it's like two branches of government and supermajorities voting for a constitutional amendment. You know, with the premise of that it'll prevent mob rule, prevent mob violence, and you know, special interests from outright taking over. And these are for constitutional amendments. So,
Federal constitutional amendments you're talking about,
um,
or statewide?
right at this moment, we do not have any procedures in place that will give um any national referendum or initiative or
Right, right.
recalls. Yeah, but I know the nation of Switzerland. They have now, of course, Switzerland. They got their own issues too. For example, they have passed some referendums, national referendums, that are very xenophobic and very Islamophobic. But at the same time, though, no, that's obviously bad. You know, that's something I hope that they improve on. It's also too that since they had the referendum process, at least on the national level, they've been able to stay out of any international wars since around the time of the War of 1812, and they haven't had a civil war since 1840s, and they've also had a lot of social democracy. Um,
Yeah, those kind of liberal European countries, especially Northern European countries, these predominantly white or historically all white nations, um, they're interesting because they have, in some ways, they're super liberal and they have great, national health care, and everyone gets 5 weeks of, vacation. But then they do tend to have some pretty racist and xenophobic
yeah,
practices because most America's different because of slavery.
yeah,
We our ancestors created racism to the degree where it is, and we're still not really dealing with it very well, whereas some of these other countries like Switzerland, it's probably pretty recent that they suddenly had people from Africa moving in, or people from refugees from Syria or whatever.
yeah.
So I would imagine it's they're kind of going through growing pains. Um, did you
Mhm.
know that in Switzerland it is a law that every house must have a gun?
I do know that, but I did also read that it's really heavily regulated, unlike here.
Right, right.
Yeah, like if you like, for example, I believe I could be wrong about this, but I know Beto O'Rourke made this um statement, and I totally agree with him on this. Like, you know, say like there's a ban on assault rifles. Obviously, you know, going door to door would be very difficult to do, but if you leave your home with that assault rifle, either you gotta give it up, or you're gonna be arrested.
Right. That's like when I look at like a some sort of ban on assault weapons, um, no one is going to go round up guns. Pot is illegal in Ohio. The cops aren't checking our nightstands to see if we have a joint. No, but if I go walk down the middle of the street smoking a joint, they're going to stop me. You know,
Yeah,
and I think similarly, if someone is a gun collector and likes doing target practice and lives out on 50 acres in the middle of Ohio and wants to shoot at things in his backyard, nobody cares.
yeah,
But if you're doing it unsafely, or you're walking into a school with a AK around your neck, we want people to be able to say, we got to stop that person.
exactly. Yeah, and
I mean, most things that are illegal, we only enforce them when we need to enforce them. It's always selective enforcement on everything. It's like, these whining pussies like Jim Jordan who complain about the mask wearing thing. Oh, they're
yeah,
going to arrest me for not wearing a mask? No, no one's going to arrest you for not wearing a mask. You know damn well that's not what it is. We're just saying, hey, dude, let's try to get rid of this stupid virus. Just wear this when you go to Walmart. That's
yeah,
all.
Yeah, like I think it was just last week or earlier this week. He was saying he made this really bizarre comparison, saying that if you don't wear a mask, or if you're enforcing, or if you just are just giving advice, like Dr. Fauci, he's not making us wear a mask. He's just saying it'd be a good idea if you wear one.
Right.
Is all he's saying. And Jim Jordan was saying, "What's next? Are they going to ban saying Merry Christmas?"
Right.
It's like
Right. And like those are connected. No.
yeah.
I would encourage you not to shout Merry Christmas in someone's face if you're not wearing a mask, because you might kill them. But no, and it is this, every law any legislature passes is selectively enforced. We don't get a ticket every time we speed.
Yeah.
God knows I would be broke. I get a ticket when I'm speeding more than I should and I get caught. I know if the speed limit is 65, I can go 70 without a problem. But if I start going 80,
Yeah.
and it's that way with everything, and they make it sound like, because Mike DeWine says we can't gather in groups more than 10, that Mike DeWine wants to shut down churches,
Yeah.
And it's like, no, the Christian with 10 children is pro-religion. Trust me. No.
Right. So okay, so you have you worked a lot in the 70s and 80s on some. I just want to make sure that I'm not wasting your time. Not wasting your time, but I don't want to, well, actually, I don't know. I mean, I do got unlimited. I mean, if you got time to talk, I mean, it doesn't matter either way. All right, cool. Like there's this idea that like apparently like because like the United States of America is with the exception of maybe Russia and China, and India, which those three nations actually border each other. So they're always watching on each other's shoulders and stuff. Is this like I know India and China sometimes have some skirmishes.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And Russia's just right up there. And then I think and then there's of course Europe and Brazil, if I'm not forgetting any other relatively major powers. But the point is that I want to make is the United States of America is probably the lone superpower left since the USSR collapsed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yes. I think we're certainly the dominant superpower.
Yeah.
China, though, has a huge military and getting bigger. But I'm wondering if the era of superpowers is over anyway. The idea of us being a superpower was, our pact with NATO. If you mess with anyone in NATO, you're messing with us, and vice versa. And so we would have our airplanes in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
But another reason that we were a superpower is because after World War II, we forbade our enemies from having an army. Germany, Italy, Japan were not allowed a military. And that was huge for them. They got to invest their money in other things like healthcare and education while we were building the world's biggest nuclear arsenal. Yeah. That's why when then Trump comes back, who has no understanding of world history, and says, Germany's army isn't big enough. We're like, yeah, no shit. So now they are starting to build back, Japan and Germany, and who knows if that'll be a good or bad thing.
Yeah. Like, so some were saying that like, and I'm of this opinion too, but after I make this point, I'm just gonna let you speak more, because this is about you.
Okay.
I want this to be about you. If we pass like a national referendum that were to pretty much cut back on unnecessary military spending and unnecessary war, and use that money then to pay for social programs, the effect it may have on the rest of the world, because like you said, we're probably the last dominant power of the world.
Mhm.
And what kind of, I mean, obviously we're still have issues and problems. Like, for example, say we get a lot more advanced with space travel. Like someone discovers how to go the speed of light or faster, or which right now is impossible in theory, but or someone discovers how to use wormholes, and then they do time travel. And now there's still gonna be issues with that, of course, because how safe is it going to be? Can humans actually survive outside of Earth? If we start terraforming other planets, there's a whole bunch of new issues and stuff like that will arise. And but the whole point, I guess, is like, at least in my opinion, is like the referendums, like national at least. Now it's not going to be a perfect system. There's going to be some really horrible ones, like happened in California.
Well, back up a little
well,
bit. Tell me how the national referendum would work.
Okay. This is like they would happen every general election year, right alongside with the presidential candidates. And in between those 4 years between general elections, you have a certain amount of time to collect enough petition signatures by population proportion. Similar to how presidential candidates, they need a certain amount of signatures themselves to get on the ballots. But this would, I would assume that, I would hope that this would be more independent, which requires a lot more signatures. And then once that happens, now if it's just a simple majority vote, the president can still veto it, Congress can still repeal it, and the Supreme Court can still strike it down. We have the 3 other checks and balances still there. But if it's a double majority, or you have 66.7% of regular voters and 66.7% of Congress members, then it becomes a constitutional amendment. And unless another one comes along that repeals that one, kind of like how we have some amendments that repeal other amendments, like prohibition and such. Right. Right now, that's the basic general premise right now.
So if it's a national referendum done by popular vote, and you need a supermajority for a congressional or for a constitutional amendment, which is how it is in a lot of states. In general, it sounds like direct democracy, like it's a good idea.
Yeah.
My concern is that in order to run anything nationally is now $50, $100 million.
Yeah.
And so we know who's going to dominate. It's still going to be dominated by the national parties and by the corporations that run them. If there was a way, for instance, one of the problems I think we have with our electoral system is because our elections are regularly scheduled, it's just a constant campaign cycle.
Yeah.
Unlike in countries where they have a prime minister instead of a president, very often they give them like 4 weeks notice that there's going to be an election, and everyone has to scramble. And
because of the parliament.
Pardon me?
Because it's more of a parliament system, right?
Right. And it's multi-partisan, which is good. I mean, it is ridiculous that we get 2 choices in politics. There isn't anything else in the universe where we're only given 2 choices.
Yeah.
And there's no reason it should be Democrat. Now, I think there should be a Democratic coalition and a Republican coalition that are made up of a bunch of smaller groups, and maybe even some in the middle that go back and forth depending on what the issue is. There's a lot of people who are very fiscally conservative and yet very liberal on things like same-sex marriage or national health care or whatever,
Yeah.
And I wish there was more going back and forth, because it's not, people want to always divide our politics on left and right as if we all have the exact same beliefs on everything.
Yeah.
I mean, on healthcare, for instance, I believe we should have a nationalized healthcare system where everyone is guaranteed healthcare from the day they're born till the day they die.
Yeah.
But I also think there should also be a private system for the people who have the money and want to do that. If someone wants the Cadillac plan, or doesn't want to be, having to sit next to poor people when they go to the doctor's office, I have no problem with the free market being there for them.
Yeah.
You know, it just shouldn't be there for them at the exclusion of everyone else.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think Martin Luther King Jr. Spoke about merging the best of socialism and the best of capitalism together.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, I've actually came up with this party name called Citizens Equality Opportunity. So that way, it's not like everyone's forced to do one thing or the other. Everyone's equal, but you have the opportunity to do what you want, as long as you're not breaking, you're not hurting anybody else. And it's funny because the initials was CEO.
Okay.
And it was kind of ironic. Well, I don't know. I'm sorry, but but anyways,
I have often said that we would not need Congress or anything if it was just against the law to be an asshole.
yeah.
You know, if we could all kind of acknowledge who the assholes are, and that's wrong. Everything else, because that takes everything: stealing, killing, sexism, racism, and all kind of rolled up in that. But
there's just one thing I wanted to clarify is the way that national referendums will work and to get to a constitutional amendment is not only do you need a supermajority of regular voters, but you need a supermajority of Congress members. So that way, that's what's called a double majority, where you have two or more branches of government that come together to prevent mob rule and and I'm hoping to get money out of politics. If that would work together, that would get into the Constitution. But I mean, this has never been done before in this country, so this is going to take a lot of trial and error, probably, if it does happen.
I think it would be more likely to happen in some future where we've already gotten rid of the Electoral College, but that's a long way off too.
Yeah.
The Electoral College is there, or was. The only reason we have an Electoral College is because there was a time when we were trying to protect the slaveholding states.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to give them more power, which obviously is not in our best interest now. It is ridiculous to me. These small states have unmatched power in the Senate as it is. The fact that Bernie Sanders got elected to the Senate with 140,000 votes, and Kamala Harris got elected to the Senate with 14 million votes in California, and yet they have this exact same job.
Yeah.
So they already have that outsized power. I mean, I would love to see the Senate be elected proportionally.
Yes.
But that's not going to happen. But then to do it a second time in the Electoral College is ridiculous.
I agree.
We already given you this bonus. Now you get another bonus. So Alabama gets 2 more electoral votes, and so does California. It doesn't matter how big or small your state is. And then you have the people like Jim Jordan.
Gerrymandering.
Well, right. The things like gerrymandering, which then fall into it as well. The politicians get to decide who their voters are going to be.
Yeah.
In Jim Jordan's district in Ohio, not only is it this weird duck-shaped thing that goes around urban centers and then scoops up more farmland, but it also has 6 prisons in it. And a lot of those district lines that reach out, it's to go get a prison. Ooh. Because if you have a prison of 20,000 inmates, that 20,000 people counts against your population. Mm. But they can't vote. So it's like the perfect power grab for someone like Jim Jordan. And the fact that the vast majority of prisons in America are in districts represented by very conservative white Republicans.
Yes.
And of course, the majority of people in our prisons is not that demographic. It's the opposite. Right. So, it's like another way. There's always another way that they're figuring out a way to steal votes, So I would love to see the way we elect a president change. Even if we said if the national vote and the electoral vote were equally weighted. So in a case like Bush versus Gore or Trump versus Clinton, it would result in a runoff, or but I think those things are unlikely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just yeah, like the only thing I'm planning on doing is, well, A, do what I enjoy. Um and while I do what I enjoy, maybe advocate for civic duty, and maybe that'll get people more enthusiastic or more involved or more I mean, in a very peaceful, nonviolent, civil, disobedient way, of course. Obviously don't want those wackos that, like, I just read today in Michigan, they surrounded, armed protesters surrounded the Michigan Secretary of State's house. Did you hear about that?
No, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's just. And what's stupid is that, like, the cops are probably letting it happen because they're probably predominantly white male, heterosexual, those Yahoo types, and
Right, the militias.
militias. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, exactly. Yeah,
yeah. Well, and in this case, they are there specifically at the direction of one person,
Trump.
of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Nobody, nobody believes that he didn't win the election, except this very tiny fringe group that is being lied to by him and Jim Jordan. And I saw last night in the debate down in Georgia that the Senator Loeffler said that Trump did not lose the election.
Yeah. I read about it. I saw that too. That was well, I saw it online, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did hear about that. Yeah, that was insane, in my opinion. Yeah.
And hopefully, this helps us in Georgia. Hopefully, it does depress the Republican vote enough, or swing those independents towards the candidates that are living in real life and not in fantasy world.
Yeah.
Because that would be a game changer if we had control of the Senate for at least a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, or anything
Well, a little bit on what you said about being civically involved. It sounds kind of namby-pamby, but it has become more fashionable to be politically involved, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
You're not looked at as a dork because you vote. Like, there was a time in my life where I think my friends are like, "What do you even see in that crap?"
Yeah.
And I think things like, the George Floyd murder, of seeing something in real life of what happens out there in the world has pissed people off enough to do something about it. So that is good. And I hope, one of my concerns is that progressives have a way of turning on each other.
Yeah.
And when Joe Biden becomes president, he will be the most progressive president we have ever had, and yet he won't be anywhere close to as progressive as all of us would like him to be. And it was like with Obama. There was things I disagreed with Obama about, but he was the best we had ever had up to that point. We keep moving forward. That's good. But I just hope that progressives can take a victory and not immediately turn it into a defeat, because Biden is not going to pursue charges against Trump or whatever it is, thing it is that we would wish he would do. Frankly, I hope Trump pardons himself, because it takes that off the table for Biden. And he can still the state courts can still go after the Trumps like crazy. But my concern is that those of us on the left who really despise Trump are going to demand that he go after Trump. And I think he is right to say, that's not how America works. We don't try to punish our predecessors. Even this one, who is like clearly an out and out criminal.
Yeah.
But so that's what I've been talking to people. It's like, let's try to get something done those first 2 years before we turn on each other.
Hmm.
You know, and if we have those seats in the Senate, we can actually do good things.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. There's a lot more. Yeah. Like, yeah. Yeah. That's, yeah.
But you know, we
Yeah.
shall see.
Yeah. I want to thank you for agreeing to do this and joining in.
Absolutely.
This is a great talk.
Okay. Yeah. Anytime. Good seeing you again.
Yeah, good seeing you. And um, yeah. Now I barely slept last night, and I'm just I don't know why I didn't take a nap before this. It happens. It happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah. You're my first interview.
Oh, great. Well, let me know what you do with it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll
Yeah.
probably edit this like together, get the key
Yeah.
points and probably post it, and I'll tag you if you want me to tag you or want me to post it.
Okay. Yeah. Let me know.
We'll do.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Once again,
All
thank
right.
you. And
See ya.
yeah, see you.